You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Hey, what is up, everyone? Thank you very much for tuning into the podcast today. I've got a good one for you with my buddy Scott, and not too much to get into before we do it. So, real quick, I just want to remind you about the fact that you can text me. If you're bored and you want to talk about whatever with me, you can text me at 503-751-8577, and there will be a few automated texts to make sure that you really want to join. And then on that list, I am chatting with people back and forth. We're talking about food. It's been very heavily music business focused lately. I'm actually talking about an EP I'm working on right now with a bunch of people on there. It's been really fun to interact that way, and I know a lot of you do not have social media, and that is a good way to keep up and to interact and all that stuff. We've got over 100 people on there, and as of right now, I can reply to everyone. So 503-751-8577 is the text number if you want to talk directly to me. And yes, it really is me. It's not any kind of automated anything. It's all me, all my thumbs, all coming from my phone. So text me there if you want a bunch of random content that isn't necessarily guitar related, but is a lot of fun regardless. And one last thing before we jump in here, I know this is going to be the last episode before Christmas, and so I just wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and all that jazz. Thank you so much for tuning in and sticking with me and all the support over all this time. So, all right, without further ado, let's get into this episode with my man Scott from SNK Pedals. Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have Scott DeBockler of SNK Pedals. We're long overdue for this one. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a real treat to have you. I'm very excited about this.
I'm pretty excited myself.
I was recording earlier this week with James Bowman from Against Me and Bowman Audio Endeavors, and he was like, "Who do you got coming up next on the show?" I'm like, "Oh, I got Scott from SNK Pedals." He's like, "Oh, I just heard about these. I was actually going to buy one. That's crazy."
well, he still can if he wants.
Yeah, I think he's planning on it the way he made it sound. So I don't know exactly which one, but something here he'd heard about from Frank Giro. So I'm not sure which pedal that was.
Frank used the VHD on when he did that live stream with Thursday.
Okay, that is what he was talking about. So there you go.
One of the other guys from Thursday also picked up a VHD.
Nice.
So
very cool. Well, that's a cool pedal. I played that one at Fear the Riff. So good on them. That's awesome. Yeah,
it's funny because it was designed by mostly as like a heavy metal pedal kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Not like an HM2 or anything, but just for metal. But now I got guys not playing metal that are using it, which is awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, well, I'll let you explain it. What is it exactly?
Well, I took the distortion channel from the Ampeg VH140C and basically shrunk it down to fit into a pedal. And it's not like a sound-alike or inspired by a kind of sound. It's the actual circuit from the amp. And I have it set up to be powered by, your regular 9-volt supply. And it can be used as a preamp. It could be used as a distortion pedal in front of your amp. You could go into a power amp with it. It works in front of like a interface on your computer or something. So, but it's just the dirty channel.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm not super familiar with those amps. I know of them and I know people that have used them, but what are some of the bigger names that have used those in metal?
It's
like a cult, kind of a cult following. Yeah.
It's like the more obscure kind of death metal bands. A lot of bands from Florida, stuff like that. Sort of like Suffocation, bands like that.
That was the first one that I was thinking of, was Suffocation.
Yeah.
But that seems obvious. But I don't know. I sometimes think of I think that I'm like, oh yeah, this band's everybody knows this band, right? And it turns out like, oh no, they're kind of off the beaten path a little more than I think of, because I'm always finding like new noise rock bands from the 90s. Like, I've never heard of this before. They're not big like At the Gates, and people are like like, who's At the Gates? Like, wait, you don't know At the Gates? What's going on? Where am I? Not that I'm like the most clued into every genre. I just sometimes make bands or artists bigger in my head than they actually are.
Oh, it's because it's big to you,
That's true.
It's you kind of build your own world with that. Just in general with music, it's, you try to spread out, and even no matter how worldly people think sometimes with music, you realize that there's so much you'll never get at all.
Oh yeah. Totally.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
But it's not really a bad thing or a good thing. It's just a thing.
I mean, I think it's variety is the spice of life. So it's nice that we have these infinite shades available to us to sample from and draw inspiration from and enjoy, and it's never going to end. It's weird how so many combinations of 12 notes can lead to just infinite possibilities. We will never discover them all.
I hope not.
I can't imagine that we would. So what's your story? I don't know. I know you make pedals. I know you're involved in the gear community very heavily, and you pay attention to all that stuff, but I don't actually know your story. When did you start playing, and how did that lead into making electronic devices?
When I was 12, I got my first guitar, and it was, let's see, like a little Japanese 3/4 scale guitar. And I also got my first amp, which was a Gorilla.
Classic.
Which was awesome.
Yeah, classic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was all inspired by a couple friends that had, played in bands or were playing instruments at that point, not really in bands yet. And I also took, like, one of our music classes was guitar was offered in middle school. So that's really where I got my hands on it at first. And from there, it was all through middle school and high school, I played guitar. And then towards the end of high school and in the beginning of college, I worked in a music store called Blue Rose Music formerly in Edison. They're closed at this point, Edison, New Jersey. A little mom and pop shop. And there is where I met a guy by the name of Dennis Kager, who was a amp technician, amp builder, amp designer. He was running a repair shop in the back of Blue Rose Music under the name of Central Jersey Music Service. And he kind of took me in as a part-time worker, and that's where I learned how to solder and everything. And I really got interested in working on things, working on amps, and kind of got the bug there. And somewhere along the line there, one of my friends showed me that he had a wah-wah pedal, a Dunlop wah-wah, standard Dunlop wah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, I got this, and it's modified." And I said, "What do you mean modified? You can modify these things. You can change parts in them, and it still works. Like, they changed the inductor in it." And from there, it kind of led down a very deep rabbit hole. After I found out you can do that, I started reading stuff on the internet and started, modifying Boss DS1s, because you can find all the Keeley instructions online and everything. So that's pretty much where it started with pedals.
Yeah, I remember the first time I heard about modifying a pedal. I was blown away. I was like, that's a thing?
You're not allowed to do that.
What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. You can't modify electronic devices, which, doesn't make any sense. I don't know why I would have ever had that perspective, because I was very used to like modifying cars and like doing electronic work in that way, like, oh, we're going to swap out for a, MSD ignition system. I'm like, well, that's a modification, a pretty intensive one even. And so I don't know why the idea of modifying a small electronic device was so foreign to me. It's kind of a weird thing with my brain, I guess. Guys, it's just different perspectives. You don't think about doing that stuff if you've never done it before.
Yeah, I mean, like even with a car, like you get introduced to a car, and if you're like you have somebody else in your life that's a car person, it's not abnormal for them to open up the hood on a car. Mm-hmm. Like if you meet somebody that plays guitar, it's like not like you're going to go over and watch him play, and he's going to stop and sit down and open up the pedal and go look inside.
Right.
This is how this works. This is how a tube works. Mm-hmm. No, you're just going to listen to it. So it's like, and it seems like maybe it's because like an average musician, maybe like a pedal is the component level as far as changing sounds.
Oh, right.
So instead of replacing your ignition coil, you're replacing your overdrive pedal.
That's a good analogy, actually, because that I think to most people that is what they are. Like, oh, this pedal doesn't sound good. You're not going to think, well, maybe I can change the pedal to make it sound good. It's like, no, I'm going to get a different pedal. That's very much the guitar player mindset for most people.
Yeah.
What? So you mentioned the DS1. Were there any other pedals that like you particularly enjoyed tinkering with?
I mean, I went down like the whole Boss rabbit hole, and anything I can find that I knew I could modify, I would buy. So I wasn't buying pedals based on what they sounded like. I was buying them based on the fact that I read somewhere you can do this certain thing and this happens. Mm-hmm. So if I knew that I was going to be able to open it up and change something and make it better than, quote unquote, better than it was when it's stock, then I'd go look for it used or, try to buy, if not used, I'd, buy it new. And from there, just buy it to change it kind of thing.
Right.
I have a picture somewhere where it's just a giant pedal board with like 95% of it was Boss pedals. So
gotcha.
So that's where that started. I think a lot of those got sold though.
So let's see. We met at the Fear of the Riff. I don't remember if it was the first year or the second year. Was it the second year? I can't remember now.
I think it was the first year because I wasn't.
You didn't do the second year?
No, I was there the second year. I had a table the second year with Dunnable.
Okay, that's right. That's okay. It's all coming back to me now. That was a lot longer ago than it feels like when I think about it.
It was like 5 years ago?
I don't think it was 5, but I think it was 4. They stopped at year 3, which ironically, like, it's kind of a good thing that they stopped, because if they hadn't, they were just getting momentum that year too. And if they had kept going, I have a feeling that the Rona would have, cost them a bunch of money instead of them just pulling the plug on it early.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a weird hindsight thing, but that was a fun event. I do miss it. That was a fun couple of years.
That was really enjoyable. First year was a little rough in the beginning because nobody really knew how to handle volume and everything, but
right.
It was fun. It was good to see. It was more so you got to see people that you've been talking to on the internet for who knows how long.
Yeah, totally.
And it kind of make that connection and or people that you already know. But I have a few friends that live up in Boston, the Boston area, and they came down and I got to see them, which was great,
Yeah.
Or, just a day to hang out kind of thing.
That's really what the best part of these trade shows, including NAMM, is. It's like, yeah, the show's fun. It's like, it's just an excuse to come and chill, though. I wish we didn't need that excuse, but you do kind of need, especially if you're flying across the country, you kind of need like a reason, or at least a tax write-off. It's a big journey, but everyone says the same thing. It always comes down to, it's like, oh, it's the people that I haven't got to see in person. And, you know, we fortunately have these connection points on the internet, you know, through these gear groups and through whatever else, and we can keep, you know, somewhat in touch that way, but it's not quite the same thing. You know, it's just not.
It can be very impersonal, you know. So it is always really good to get face to face with somebody.
So you've gotten, like we talked about, Frank having some of the pedals, and you've had a handful of other artists that people would know play your stuff. Have you had any like really trippy moments from like starting the company and like wow, I can't believe this guy's, you know, talking to me now, or anything like that?
I got the guys from High on Fire, both Jeff Matz and Matt Pike playing the VHD, which is awesome, you know. Nice. They heard about it through mutual friend Bear from Bear Amps. But I got an email one day from somebody else, and it's like, hey, this is Scott Hull. And, you know, I'm not sure if you heard of my band, but I play for Pig Destroyer, you know. I don't know if you ever heard of us. I was like, yes, I've heard of you. He's like, I wanted to check out one of these pedals. I'm like, give me your address. Right. So, and that's actually, it's become his main distortion pedal. It's like, you know, it's what he's using on his board.
That's so cool.
100% of the time now. So that's pretty cool.
How did the collaboration with Dunable come about?
He had put out a, you know, feeler when he for a short time had a brick and mortar storefront. And he was talking about how he's opened up the brick and mortar, and I, you know, took it upon myself to message him and said, hey, if you want, you know, you want some inventory for your store, I can send you some pedals. And he was like, sure, great. And I mean, he's been the only dealer that I've used so far. So yeah, it started with that, and you know, he's just about my age. We have similar taste in music and everything. So we've, you know, pretty much, even though doesn't have the brick and mortar anymore, I still talk to him all the time and everything, and, you know, show him what I'm working on, and I bought a couple guitars from him so far. So
such good guitars.
Oh my God.
I need to get one day.
Have you played him yet?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I played them there, the Fear the Riff, and I've, some friends have had them at their booths at NAMM. I think it was Fuzz Roche's booth last year. He had a bass there, and I've put my greasy mitts on some beautiful guitars a time or two. They're fantastic. I love them.
Yeah, I got two. I have two Yetis. I have a regular scale, and then I have a baritone scale. So,
what's the scale length on that baritone?
28, I believe.
28. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I first got a baritone, it was a 27, and it was my first experience with like having one, and it felt like a bass to me. It felt so long, because I'm not that big of a dude, and so that it just felt so long. But as I've gotten used to it, it feels really good at 27, and now I have a 28 that doesn't feel long. You know, it still feels a little bit longer, but I can handle it. It was just strange to me. I just remember thinking this 7-string 27-inch scale that I had, I was like, this is so huge. How am I going to ever figure this out? And over time, you do
that pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's not as bad as we tend to do that, or at least I tend to do that. Like, I was like, what am I going to do with an extra string? And you figure it out. Like, it's not nearly as complicated as it seems when you're just used to, you know, 24 3/4 and 25.5 6-string. You know, like, it seems like a daunting task, but it's not that bad. It's fine if I can do it. Anybody.
I've had people call me weirdos, or call me a weirdo, because I very regularly switch between scale lengths and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have the baritones. I have two different length baritones. I have the 28 and then the 27.78 and 25 and a half. And I have some 24 and 3/4 guitars. And then I have a bass 6, which is the 30 inch scale.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I don't know, maybe I'm just not that good of a guitar player. That I'm not playing anything complicated enough that I do feel the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not a very good guitar player, but I switch all the time too. I'm constantly grabbing different guitars. I think the 28's the longest guitar I have. Then I have a P bass that I play pretty regularly, which, I mean, obviously that's a different thing, but bass always felt fine. So I don't know why I was so intimidated by this 27 inch. I don't know. It's a weird transition period in my life, I guess. Now I love baritones. I love them so much. I'm like, everybody needs to own a baritone. You got to experience this. They sound so huge and glorious. I don't.
Yeah, I have two, and people are, why do you have two baritones? Why do you need two baritones? I'm like, well, I don't need two baritones, but I want two baritones.
I mean, I have two as well. I have two 6 strings and one 7 string. So I guess 3 technically. But yeah, you got to have more than one. Why would you have, that's like asking, why do you have so many Telecasters? Well, because you need more. Like, that's the reason. You always need more. What is your favorite guitar you own? Is it one of those Dunables?
Yeah, that's what I play the most of. Right now, sitting next to my amps, I have the 2 Dunables. I have the bass 6, which is actually built by a company called Lowell, Lowel.
I'm not familiar with them.
It was a one guy thing, and his website's still active or still available, but it hasn't been updated in a long time, so you can see a lot of what he's done. But it's all one off kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like a Maserati style body.
Oh, cool.
3 P90s in it, and then like I said, the bass 6 30-inch scale neck. But the body itself is actually made out of pine.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it was the story, as I understand it, was that it was taken from like a 100-year-old barn somewhere.
Nice.
So but then it's painted blue. So it's on, you can actually see the pine. It's got like a nice metallic blue paint on it. So it's a little weird. But I did recently put some Lawler, the staple P90s in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're amazing for baritone.
I've played the staple P90s before, but sonically, how would you describe them being different? It's been a long time since I messed with them.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the pickups I had in there previously were like the cheap, like Gold Tone or whatever,
mm-hmm.
or maybe it was GFS. GFS. So they were cheap ones. Like, so maybe it was just the fact that I went from a cheap pickup to a Lawler.
Yeah,
but I mean, the 3 pickups set up on it, and I find in like the middle position, just a single middle pickup, you can get pretty close to like your P bass sounds.
Oh, nice.
Which was really exciting for me because P bass is what I think of when I think of like electric bass.
Yeah.
Maybe with like a PJ setup, like combination, but you have to be able to isolate that P pickup.
I mean, that is kind of, I mean, I like a lot of different bass tones, but that's like the bass tone, like, especially for rock and roll and the things that I'm into.
Exactly.
But yeah, the Lawler pickups on, they're I don't know, they must have some special sauce in those things. I got Lawler gold foils in this Grez guitar on the 28-inch scale. Man, it sounds unreal. Like it's crazy how articulate it is, and I think it's kind of crucial to have, not crucial, but like for the style that I like, having a lower output pickup like that's very articulate on that deep tuning, longer scale stuff, I think really helps like bring some presence back in.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I don't know, really sounds very piano-like in a weird way. But I love that Lawler knows what they're doing, apparently, is what I'm gathering from this conversation.
No doubt. It's like yeah, they got it wrapped up there. And actually that was the first real experience I had playing Lawler myself, like with my own equipment and everything. So it was nice.
Nice.
It stays out here, it doesn't get put away. So
where do you do your building at? Do you have a little shop there? What's your setup like?
I live in a 2-bedroom apartment.
All right.
And I do it in the dining room.
Nice.
So it's me and my daughter live here, and I bounce between taking care of her and building pedals right now, with the whole Corona thing. My day job is now not very existent. So I get to focus on pedals a lot more now, which is nice. Was able to build a lot more, get a lot more out, make some improvements to the current designs I have. And I do have a new design coming very soon, hopefully within the next couple of weeks.
Do we get to know about it, or is it going to stay on the
sure.
deal? All right. What is it?
No, actually, I do want to kind of spread the word because I'm notoriously bad at self-promotion.
Well, let's self-promote, baby. Let's do it.
There you go. It's. I went for if you were to categorize the VHD as like a little bit more old school metal sound, like 90s, 2000 kind of sound. I like to think that what I have going now is a little bit more modern sounding. And, it's something I thought up and, decided to throw it together, and it, luckily worked out. It's one of those things where like, I didn't spend a lot of time prototyping it. So, I had the idea, ran with it, and I was pleasantly surprised with how it came out.
Well, so what is the controls like? What exactly? I'm assuming it's a distortion, but like, what do we look
like
at?
a drive distortion? Yeah, but it's it's a basic volume gain control, a standard tone control like you'd see in a Rat, but I also added a mid control that is very similar to what's being used in the VHD. So I did carry a little bit over, but it's an op amp distortion with the mid control and a tone control. But I also, in addition to that, I do have a JFET stage driving the front end of it. Okay. So, and then just a standard buffer on the outside, on the output to keep it friendly with everything else.
Gotcha.
But I wanted to try something new. I have a couple of designs. It tends that I'll do smaller runs of other designs, and the VHD has always been like my main drive. Mm-hmm. No pun intended. Just it's what moves the most, so I focus most of my time on it. But I every once in a while I get the itch to try something else new. So this is what happens.
Do you have a certain process that you follow when you're working on new designs, or do you just kind of get a wild hair and break out the breadboard, or is it more methodical than that?
It's mostly wild hair kind of situation, and I spend a lot of time with schematics and everything, and I completely skip the breadboard step.
Oh.
It's one of those things I was never very efficient at it. And I have just kind of taken the risk and gone straight to PC boards. Luckily, with the way PC board production works now, it's very easy to be able to get 3 or 5 boards made up and you can, bring them home and make up 1 or 2 pedals and see if it works and what needs to be changed and everything. And after that, I go through 1 or 2 revisions like that, and then I jump into production at that point. Share it with some people beforehand to make sure I'm not the only one that likes it, and kind of thing.
Right.
And then throw it out there and hope other people think it's cool.
Just throw it out in the wind and see where it blows, basically.
It's kind of one of those things where I maybe I limit myself, but I tend to build things that I want first.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm interested in seeing how something sounds, I'll build it myself, and then I'll build some, and hopefully somebody else likes what I like enough that they want to have own it themselves. So it doesn't always work out, but.
What's the rest of your rig look like? Like when you're testing a pedal out, like what's your go-to test rig?
Oh, I'll have to send you a picture later. But I kind of, over the past couple of years, have gone a little nuts with picking up amps.
I like the sound of this.
Yeah. So sitting in front of me right now, I have a Marshall clone that I built, a 2204 clone. I have a Yamaha T100 head. I have the DC30, the matchless.
Yeah.
I have one of those clones.
Ooh.
I have a YBA1 that is pretty much like a 1987 Marshall right now. I have a YRM1 trainer sitting in front of me. A V4B. I have another V4 that I'm working on. PV6505. The MH, the little tiny head, that's EL84 head.
Mm-hmm.
I have a Sundown amp made by Sundown Amps, which was a Dennis Kager creation. And I also have a Mesa Mark III over here. So I tend to run through a lot of those while testing.
That's a lot of amp for a stage, let alone a 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah. Well, luckily I was happy enough to find the torpedo reload.
Ah, there you go.
So I just recently put together a patch bay, rack mounted patch bay that lets me connect any one of the heads to any one of the cabs here. I have 4 cabs here underneath the heads, and I can basically just right from sitting at my desk, I can plug any one of those heads into any one of the cabinets.
That's convenient.
And through the torpedo. So
I have thought about making something like that. I have an idea of how it would work, but obviously I'm not an electronics guy. But I've thought about doing that for, I kind of have this wall of amps and cabs behind me, and it's always a pain to swap. They're up against the wall, so you kind of got to drag them out, and they look really cool if they're like the background of a video, but it makes it very difficult to play around with different cabs. So I've actually been thinking about doing that. I might have to see what you did there.
Oh yeah, definitely. I have you heard of Redco?
Yes.
They actually have a patch panel designer on their website.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, I when I found that, it was pretty amazing.
Redco, for everyone who doesn't know, they're like a bulk cable and cable parts supplier. Is that the easiest way to describe them? Probably.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So if you want to build your own cables, that's where you go. Basically, whatever they have is the whole range of their own cables. They have other companies' cables they sell as well, and all the straight ends and the 90-degree ends and everything, and pretty much anything you would want. And you, as long as you can solder, you can build exactly what you want, which is nice.
I can solder. I'm just very slow at it. Being a Cyclops, it makes it kind of hard. It's like, oh, I missed. Well, I missed again. I would be the worst pedal assembly person, not from a quality perspective. It would come out decent quality, but it would take me like 4 days to put together a pedal. It's
overhead might be a little high.
Yeah, it's not a manufacturing electronics is not probably a good thing for me to be doing. But yeah, Redco is interesting. The first time I haven't talked about this on the show for years and years, but we used to jam at my friend Leon, who does Pelican Noise Works. We used to jam at his house and in his basement.
Okay.
And, we'd play pretty late at night, and his wife was very tolerant of us, but obviously that wasn't a very pleasant experience for her.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. And so we did the best we could. We used an electronic drum kit, ran through its own computer, and then Leon ran he dug a trench in his backyard and ran conduit, and we ran this very long, rather complicated snake from Redco that he put together to where we could plug our guitars in, or plug our pedal boards into these leads, and then the amps would be out in his studio. Studio was too small for us all to play in. That's why we did this. But it was, somewhat isolated, and it was away from the house, so we could have the amps cranked up and running hot in there. The bass, I feel like the bass we tended to run direct. I can't remember. Maybe we mic'd up a bass. No, maybe we mic'd up a bass cab in there. It's hard for me to remember. But the guitars were all out there playing at pretty decent volume. And then we ran everything through headphones, and it sounded great in our headphones.
So were you in the house or were you in the trench?
The trench got filled in. So yeah. So the trench got filled in and then paved over the top of it. And then we were in the basement.
Okay.
The trench was just maybe like 1.5 feet or 2 foot deep to run the cable from the basement to the studio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, but like, I heard what it sounded like to everyone else, because I'd I got to run and use the bathroom, and I'd run upstairs to use the bathroom, and the guys would still be playing, and it sounded so stupid because it was just like, the mesh heads of the electric drums. So it's just like, it doesn't really sound, it sounds like a little kid, like playing drums on his desk. And then you can't hear any of the guitars or bass because they're basically, they're just electric guitars that are not plugged in to the outside world. And and then a bunch of guys like, it's like, this sounds so stupid to everyone else, but it at least was quieter than what we were doing previously. So, we were doing the best we could with the setups we had at the time. And then that led to like me building the shred shed, and the idea was we were going to play out here, and then everybody started having kids. There were some of us did have children. I didn't at the time, but everyone got more kids or got new kids, and it just that really got kind of sidelined it right around the time that this podcast started, which is kind of a bummer. But we keep hoping we're going to get back to writing and recording soon. We keep talking about it, so hopefully one day we can actually pull the trigger.
Yeah, I've done that a lot recently. It's one of those things. I have every intention on getting together with a buddy and start writing some music, and trying to record some stuff, even if it's just demos to start and everything. But it's just there's always something to do. There is.
The thing that pushed us really aggressively, it wasn't that we ever intended on touring or anything like that. That wasn't the point. It was just we wanted to make music. And but in order for it to be a priority, my old job, I used to have to put my vacation time in a year in advance. So so we were like, we want to go take some time off and go into the studio for a week and record our album, really do it for real. And for the rest of the guys, they didn't have to put in that year. I had to put that time in a year in advance. And so I was like, okay, we have to be done, and ready to go. Like, we have to have our songs wrote. And so that like put us on, it wasn't like a huge time crunch. Obviously we had a year and we had already had a handful of songs that were written, or at least in the preliminary stages. And that really pushed me personally. Like, I was like very diligent about writing and very diligent about like exploring an idea that I would have, because I knew we were on that time crunch. And if it showed, if we showed up to the studio and we had 3 songs written, that was not going to be a very fun experience for us. So
yeah,
I think having that deadline for me, while I kind of hate deadlines, they do make me get the thing done. And I think that's what it's going to take if we ever intend to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I have nothing really, no real push. There's nobody waiting for me, to say, hey, you're supposed to have your guitar parts written, or, what's going on? Practice is at, 2:00 on Sunday. Why aren't you here?
Right.
Why aren't you ready to play? So it's kind of like, like I have all my amps set up here. I have everything set up to switch back and forth. I have the 2 notes all set up. I went out and picked up a laptop and monitors just so I can sit here and try recording stuff for myself. And I haven't.
I wonder what that is. I mean, I have the same thing. Like, I have everything I could need to record at least decent guitar tracks and vocals even. But like, I don't do it. And I don't know why. When I was, 14-year-old me would be like punching me in the face right now. Like,
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, back then all I had was like a guitar and a crate amp. And I was just dreaming of the day that I might have a setup like I have now, not actually ever thinking that it was going to be possible. And now I've got access to every sound I could think of, and I can't get myself to write a good song. It's like, adulting is dumb. It's taking all the fire out of me.
It's what is it? Youth is wasted on young.
I think so.
I try to take away as many excuses to not make me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I keep everything out and I keep everything set up. Laptop sitting here, and I have Reaper set up. I have a session built and everything just to record guitar into it and everything, and I have all my guitars, 2 feet away from my amps and everything in my living room. And Netflix. I sit down and do something, and then I just don't.
And then Amazon Prime Video. All right, let's see what's going on.
Exactly.
No,
there's some Netflix on.
Just saying that all this out loud though has helped me, like, because I do a lot of demos and stuff where it's just a lot of noodling and screwing around, and my wife always says, she's like, you don't make songs anymore. She's like, you just make sounds. I'm like, oh, you're right. Like, I don't try to learn songs. I don't try to write songs. I just make sounds, which there's some value in, and it's definitely very therapeutic for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just getting that intention lined up, I think that's what I need to do. I need to like set a goal and like make it a thing somehow. Kind of like, you hear people say, like, if you want to like commit to a workout, tell everybody that you're going to work out, 3 times a week, like, put it out there so that people know. And then you kind of feel dumb if you don't do it. And so like, that's what I need to do. I need to be like, I'm going to work on this project, even if it's just like a solo thing or whatever, and get it done. I think it's going to be what it takes, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's like we're having like a little, dad support group right now.
There are a lot of dads that listen, so
I make sounds too, man.
I make wheedly wheeze and squealy squeals and chuggity chugs. Like, come on.
Like I have 2 pedal boards sitting in front of me right now. 3 of them actually. I have no want for sounds, and I know how to make them. And then like I make the sound and I make some noise for a few minutes, and I go, okay, cool. Like that little part that in me that needed to make some sound is, satiated for a few minutes, and I go back to doing something else around the house, and then maybe I'll come back over here again and do it a little bit later. But it's a rare thing for me to sit down and like focus on playing for any extended period of time.
I think that's what we need to do. We need to think about what would teenage us do in this particular situation. I know what I would do. And it's exactly. Not what I'm doing right now at all. Maybe a little bit. I would definitely be tweaking knobs and swapping pedals in and out, but that's just because I didn't know what pedals were when I was a teenager, which is a whole different story.
I had the benefit of, like I said, working in a music store and being introduced to stuff that way. And like a buddy of mine who really got me interested in music and playing guitar and everything, electric guitar. Like even him, like he's like, I have a Marshall amp and I have an EQ, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that? Like 97,
right?
1997. So I was in high school.
That rig would still hold up to this day, though.
Well, absolutely.
I mean, you don't really need much more than that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, JCM 900.
Yeah.
The was at the dual reverb head, and then DoD EQ that he got used with most of the sliders snapped off of it.
Well, of course.
It would still work. It still work if you move the sliders with a pick. So still works.
I like it. It's great. We've kind of like touched on it here and there, how you like heavier music. Like what were some of the bands back then? We kind of glossed over that. Like what really got the blood pumping?
Man, like I keep mentioning the same person. It's my buddy Keith, who plays for this band. Years ago, they were known as Arson.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody even in New Jersey listened to hardcore in 2000s, they'd know the name. They probably know the name Arson. But after a few years, they changed their name to Sid Barrett, which is a little confusing.
Yeah, a little bit.
They're not the guys. It's not the guy from Pink Floyd. So, but still, an awesome band, and they're still together doing stuff and not putting too much out, but they're still playing. I think at least a couple times a month. But they're all the same situation as like you and I are. Everybody's getting older and everybody's having kids and everything. So, but I would hang out with my buddy Keith all the time, and he was like my introduction into a lot of music. So like when I was younger, I listened to like a lot of, there was like Metallica and Megadeth and Pantera, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Overkill. But then it got into stuff like Dream Theater and all sorts of like shreddy stuff and all sorts of weird like power metal and stuff like that for the longest time. I don't know why. I still have stacks of CDs somewhere. But then, got into Dream Theater pretty heavily. And it probably wasn't until somebody else that my buddy Keith was playing with handed him a copy of Jane Doe that I really got.
There you go.
Yeah. That I really kind of, what is that? Kind of, what is this? I don't understand this stuff. I also had another buddy, my buddy Ed, who was the punk rock guy. So he got me into stuff like Bad Religion, NoFX, which is like the big two for me, really, as far as punk rock goes. Ramones.
Mm-hmm.
So, I kind of take like a little bit from a couple different genres at this point. It's hard for me to say I'm like this kind of music fan, which I think is probably a good thing. But yeah, I mean, at the gates, like you mentioned earlier, death, just, but now like a lot of the music I listen to has to be filtered through my daughter, who's 6.5. So, well, it's good because like she has taken interest in the fact that I play guitar. She has her own little Ibanez,
nice,
one of the little micros, but she's actually a really good drummer for being 6.
That's cool.
And up until everything shut down, in this country. She was taking like weekly drum lessons and everything. And she's got a little electronic drum set in her room. So I definitely know the no sound electric drum sound pretty well. The soft thuds. So, I mean, we listen to a lot of older stuff. I mean, like Black Sabbath and stuff like that. Her favorite band is Ghost, which I also enjoy. So yeah,
that's awesome.
And she likes to sing as well. So it's very entertaining watching her like sing along with it and figure it out. Like, not really know exactly what she's saying. So she's 4 or 5, 6, and she's singing along, and she's like singing in Latin, doesn't realize that she is. And
right.
But she's finally hit the point where she's like, "What is this song about?" And I'm like, "Well, it's about the devil." she's like, "What?"
She's like, wait a minute.
I was like, pretty much every song that Ghost has something to do with the devil. She's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine." Oh, okay, cool. So I'm like, it's just a band. It's make believe. It's made up. It's all story. Do you like the song? Yeah. Okay, cool. Like back in February, I took her to her first concert, like her first real concert.
Oh, wow. That was like right on the cusp of things.
Yeah. So, but we went to, took her into New York City and we saw Devin Townsend.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, she had a pretty legit introduction to live music.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So that was fun though. That's one of her favorites now.
Devin Townsend. Not a lot of 6.5-year-olds are saying Devin Townsend's their favorite. That's a unique situation.
Yeah. So
I like that.
It's very inspiring.
Yeah.
And we'll put on like the XM radio and listen to the metal channel. But she'll go, okay, what band is this? And I'll tell her. She's like, okay, but what song is this? I need to know what song it is so I can remember for later. Oh, okay. It's very, very specific about needing to know the names of the songs and everything. Find out like, hey, but who's in this band? I'm like, most of the time, I'm like, I don't know, buddy.
Like, let me Google that real quick.
Yeah, exactly. I'll Google that when I'm not driving.
Right. Yeah, I was saying something kind of along these lines to my wife last night. We were talking about, exposing our kids to different things and how, back when we were kids, basically all we heard as children was old country and like 90s country. That's pretty much all our parents listened to, both my wife and myself. And, a little Elvis thrown in there and some other things here and there. But like the first time I heard Metallica, like I was like, what is this? I didn't know like songs could be like this. It didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I specifically remember the first time I listened to Metallica. Like I knew my friends listened to Metallica, and I was like, "Hey man, what CD should I go out and buy?" And they're like, "Go buy Master Puppets and Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning." So I went to the store and I found Master Puppets and I found Kill 'Em All, and I brought it home. And I'd grown up listening to like the Grateful Dead and the Rolling Stones and Frank Zappa and Tom Petty and stuff. So it was all a little bit lighter, a little bit more controlled than a Metallica CD. But I sit down and I put this music on, and I specifically remember not being able to understand what was happening.
Right.
Like what? Like I know they're playing guitars and stuff, but I can't. It was like trying to read a foreign language. Like you can sit down and you can sound out the words, but you have no idea what the hell you're saying.
Right. You don't know what it means. It doesn't.
Yeah. It's like, what? So I had to go back and listen to it a couple times. And like, I remember that. And I specifically remember the first time I got a copy of Slaughter of the Souls at the Gates and putting it on. And part of me almost being like afraid to keep listening to it.
Right. You're like, this is a lot.
This is a lot going on here.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, I was like, some of that stuff, I'm like, oh man, I don't know what this is. But that, where I was going with that, with talking about the, my kids and stuff, I'm on this big, I just like this week, I forgot how much I used to really like the band From Autumn to Ashes. And,
Okay.
And I mean, I hadn't listened to them in years. They were a huge inspiration for me younger, and I kind of forgot about them for some reason. I don't know why. And I've been listening to their last album, Holding the Wolf by the Ears, a lot. And I was like, hey, buddy, come here, check this out. And he's like, oh yeah, this is some good heavy rock and roll, was his response. Because he's heard a lot of this stuff at this point. Like one of his favorite songs is "Boogie Woman" by oh my goodness, my brain's failing right now. Why can't I think of the name of that band? I'm so mad at myself. The album's called White Bat.
Boogie Woman.
Everyone's screaming at every like metal fan is screaming.
I'm not. I'm just as lost as you are right now.
He is legend.
So
he is legend. That's the name.
Oh, okay.
Oh wow, that was bad.
I remember seeing them at like a club in New Jersey years ago.
I would love to see them live. I've never caught them before. I found them. They've been playing a band for a long time, and I didn't start getting into them until maybe last year or year before.
One of the things that stands out in my mind is they did a cover of a Bush song.
Oh, I don't know about this.
I don't know the name of the Bush song. It's the one with starts out with the bass line, and it's pretty much the same bass line through the whole song.
Okay. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about, but
is it to Come Back Down or whatever?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. I sound like someone's parent right now.
I know.
It's that band with that song.
Oh, I catch myself doing it all the time.
Yeah.
That rock band. They play with the guitars.
Oh, they're too loud.
Gotta turn it down.
Those nice young men. But yeah, I was like, I had no idea who they were, but they were. Some friends were playing somewhere on the same bill, and so I was there, and I was like, cool, I'll watch these guys because I'm here. Why not listen to something new? It's fun. But yeah, they did it. One of the things that sticks out in my head is they did that Bush cover.
They're a really cool band. They're good with the riffs, and I like them quite a bit. Glad I found out about them, or was pushed to. I knew of them for a long time before I actually gave them a listen, and I'm kind of mad at myself for letting it go that long. But yeah, he is legend. Great band.
Now you're up in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you ever heard of From Ashes Rise?
No.
Oh, dude. They even though I had been listening to heavy music for a while, they legitimately changed the way I looked at music.
Oh.
And kind of put me down the road where I am now, like tone wise, as far as guitars go. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they're based out of Portland.
I'll have to give them a listen.
Yeah, like I saw them in a club in New Jersey, and I had no idea who they were. And I was a kid. I would never had I had money to get the ticket to get into the show, but I never had the money for merch.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to borrow money from one of my friends because I needed to have their CD. Because it's like I couldn't just go home and look them up on the internet at that point.
Right.
It was like I need to have this CD right now. Let me borrow whatever it was, $5 or $12 or whatever to buy a CD from their merch table. I'm like, I need this. And I still follow them at this point. But yeah, that band like legitimately changed music for me.
That's a big statement, when something can have that big of an impact like immediately. And that's why music's so wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen every time. But when it happens, it's almost like magic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, whoa, what just happened to my brain? I thought there was a me before I heard this artist, and now there's a me after, and they are not the same person.
Exactly.
Well, we're getting down to the last few here, and we've got some classic questions to get into. But before we do that, this is where you can choose to self-promote. You can choose to get a message out there that you'd like a few thousand people to hear, or just whatever. The floor is yours right now, good sir.
Well, I mean, we talked about the new pedal earlier, but I'm realizing sitting here that I never actually told anybody what it was going to be called.
Right.
I'm going to be calling it the Body Breaker.
Ooh, I like that.
And that name is taken from the Tibetan practice of sky burial.
I don't know what that is. You're going to have to elaborate.
Sky burial?
Yeah.
It's based on the fact that they live in a often rocky, mountainous area, and part of their religious beliefs is to completely return back to the earth. A sky burial is meant. What they do is, you're basically, after you pass away, you are fed to vultures.
Oh,
and before you're fed to vultures, they dismember you, and the person that is in charge of doing that is the Body Breaker.
Ah, gotcha.
So, and it's also after the vultures have their fill, he has to go back out and collect the bones, and then he has to crush them, and he mixes them with a butter, and then puts this ball of butter out, and the crows eat it. So your entire body goes.
Wow.
Yeah. So I figure, like, if I'm making like a really metal pedal, I was going to name it something, kind of metal.
Yeah, that's pretty metal.
So
those kind of things are always interesting to hear about, because like our practices are very safe and sanitized and clean, and that is the opposite of that. But at the same time, it's a lot more natural. So
yeah,
it's just interesting to hear how different cultures do things. But that's definitely a solid name for Anyway, sorry, I was interrupting.
No, totally. It's I'm hoping to have that out in a couple weeks, actually.
Cool. Very cool.
We're going to finish up some artwork, send it off to my buddy, get some artwork printed on the enclosures that he's making for me. And I already have boards here assembled and ready for testing and everything. So, yeah, I'm hoping to have them out this month if possible. Nothing really confirmed yet, but I'm sure I'll post something about it on Instagram when I do know a lot more. And in addition to that, I am going to be doing another run of VHDs in probably about 4 or 5 weeks. So I like to build them probably about 25 at a time at this point. And once they're built is when I put them up. So they typically go pretty quickly, which is nice for me because it's pretty much making life from home a little bit easier at this point.
Right.
In a post-COVID world.
Right. So would you say everybody should stay glued to your Instagram for that? Is that the best place?
Yeah, it's SNK, the letters SNK pedals on Instagram. Or you can email me, snkpedals@gmail.com, or it's just snkpedals.com.
There you go.
I formerly used to be S&K, but I've moved away from that and just going with SNK, the letter N.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, cool. All right, well, we'll get into these classic questions and we'll wrap this thing up.
Cool.
So the first one, and based on your earlier statement about having a lot of Boss pedals, this will be a fun one. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
I have to keep it basic and go with the DS1.
Oh, man after my own heart. I love the DS1.
Yeah, I mean, you can still find the instructions online from Keeley about doing like the seeing eye mod and everything. And when I used to listen to, I still do, but I was really big into Steve Vai, and I found out that he had a Keeley modded DS1 with the seeing eye mod, and I was never going to be able to afford my own Keeley modded thing. But when I found out that you can find the instructions basically online, and I can go pick up a used DS1 for $30 somewhere, or $25. That made it a lot more accessible to me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, DS1 is definitely the number one. Honorable mention would go to the it's the PS3.
Mm-hmm.
That's the cave-in pedal, as they call it.
Yep, the cave-in pedal.
So that's another one there. I mean, of course, neither of those on my board right now. Yeah, stick with the TU2 tuner or like a NS2. So some honorable mentions there. But if I had to pick one, it'd be the DS1.
Solid choice. Solid choice. Okay, you're an East Coast guy, so I know you're going to have some opinions on this. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
I don't like pizza. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I'm not publishing this episode. This is ridiculous.
No, I actually had pizza last night.
As did I.
Hey, Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, two schools of thought here for me. Either I'm going to go with just a straight plain pie, or maybe some pepperoni, maybe some mushrooms. Try not to go too crazy sometimes if I'm ordering a pie. But I do have this kind of annoying sensitivity to nightshades, which tomato is a nightshade. So if I get into probably about 50% of the time I'll order a white pie. So I'll get a white pie with spinach on it. The Popeye, as they call it. So it's either a plain pie with a single topping or a white pie with spinach.
And where do you like to get your pizzas? Do you have a favorite spot?
There is, typically it's the closest place to wherever I'm living.
Okay.
But I stay away from like the chain restaurants. There is there's a pizzeria I can walk to from my apartment that is called Anthony Franco's, and they've had my business for about 7 years now. So
right on.
It's one of those things like I've thought about moving, and it's one of the things I would legitimately miss. Like you have to find a new barber. You have to find a new pizza place if you move.
Yeah.
And I have a really good barber, and I have a really good pizza place. I don't really like my apartment that much, but yeah, it's the convenience.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, our local like really good pizza place that's like right here in town. They've had, obviously a heck of a year just with COVID and with everything else. But on top of all that, they had a pipe burst, like whatever, a month ago or so, maybe 2 weeks ago. And they're like, we're closed for the rest of 2020. I'm like, of course 2020 has taken my favorite spot.
You have a backup?
I mean, we have a handful of okay ones, nearby. That's definitely the best. I was like a wood-fired Italian spot. It was really, really, really good. But yeah, I mean, well, for instance, last night I drove 40 minutes into downtown Portland to get pie from this place called Demo's that I've been following on Instagram for a while, but I'd never gotten to pull the trigger on. And 40 minutes is not crazy long, but it's it's a little bit long for getting takeout, and it was worth it. It was really good.
Did you eat it in the car?
No,
at that point?
No. I wrapped it in sweatshirts and got it back home.
Wow.
And it was still pretty warm by the time I got it back home. But we went ahead and warmed it up in the oven a little bit just to kind of re-crisp it a little bit.
Yeah,
and
reasonable.
It was very good. It was worth the round trip. It was very tasty.
There's a couple like the brick oven or the coal fired or wood fired oven places around here, but they're so expensive for some reason.
Yeah, they're expensive.
I feel like they are. Like I've been to places in New York City where it's reasonable to get a brick, like a wood fire brick, with a brick oven pizza. But like local, it's like, oh my god! Like you try to sit down and have lunch and you spend like $15 and you get like a little, 6-inch pie or something, or 8-inch pie. It's
Yeah,
not enough.
we have some really good, really, really good places in Portland. And yeah, they're none of them are cheap. They're not, some of them are a little more reasonable than others. None of them are like so outrageous that I would never go there. But, by the time I got out of there with like, I added some pepperoni to this pie, which, it already had some meat, but I wanted to try this local pepperoni they use. And by the time I got out of there with tip and everything, it was like, I don't remember, $38. But
yeah,
which is it's not an insane amount of money, but it's also a lot of money for pizza.
Yeah, like if I'm gonna do something special, celebrate something, I'll go, I'll drop the extra money on that. But if it's Friday night and I'm gonna be sitting on my couch with takeout, yes, I'm gonna get the local pie.
Yeah.
There is one place not too far from here that I can't remember. Of course, I can't remember the name of it, but they I never actually fact checked this, but they claim to be the one of the only spots in the United States that has been like certified to make Neapolitan style pizza.
Really?
I don't even know what that means. Yeah, so I had to look that up and sing a link or something.
Yeah,
they had to train somebody in Italy to come back and make the pizza in New Jersey, which is an odd thought.
That is a weird thing to think about, but hey, who knows? I've never been
it's
to
like bringing
Italy.
Sand to the beach, man.
So, well, right on, man. This was a fun chat. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, it only took us a couple of years to do this.
I know, it's ridiculous. What are we doing? What are we doing with our lives? Why did it take so long?
Probably making guitar noises and paying attention to our children.
Well, yeah. Such is life. Such is life.
Yep.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody. For Scott, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right. I hope you guys had as much fun on that episode as I did. And if you need more, of course, there's more over on Patreon. And we talk about Batman very extensively on this particular Patreon episode because both Scott and I are big fans of The Dark Knight. So that was a lot of fun. The Patreon episodes have been killer. And thank you so much to everyone who supports over there. For $5 a month, you get extra episodes to your ears every week. And it really, 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 really helps out a lot. It really is huge. So thank you so much to everyone that's doing that. Thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, don't forget that you can text me if you want. That's still a thing. Just a quick reminder on that. You can text me at 503-751-8577 if that sounds like a good experimental time to you. All right. I hope everyone has a good holiday. Take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously, seriously, seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.